Welcome back, everyone, for another uncomfortable conversation about the future of our country and the world, because guess what? So goes America, so goes the rest of the world right now, unfortunately. I wish I could sit there and tell you that to explain the election would be a simple task. To explain the election fully, I'd probably have to go back to the killing of John F. Kennedy and the Rockefeller brothers and Yitzhak Shamir. We'll get there eventually, folks. I promise. That's coming at some point. But not today. Not today. Today, I would just like to assuage, I guess, some of the neurotic panic and butthurt on the left and some of the what's the best way? This smug idiocy displayed on the right of a mark that doesn't know how bad it's about to get conned. Donald Trump, whatever people may think about him, he is an American character. And the Democrats and the left never really understood that. They tried to turn him into something he wasn't, into some kind of fantastical Caesarian boogeyman ready to pull another Hitler. That's just not who Trump is, and it never was who Trump was. Donald Trump, he's a narcissist. He's a child that wants attention and validation and respect, which was denied to him by his father and by his peers as he was growing up and becoming a professional success. I mean, you watched that movie that came out. It was very good, actually. The Apprentice. That was a pretty fair reckoning of Trump's early days. One or two things obviously completely off the mark, but they got Roy Cohn in his green room full of frogs and faggotry of all types down to a T. The one thing I don't think they covered too much was that Roy liked him a little on the young side too, much like Jeffrey Epstein, another one of Donald's friends and mentors. So Trump isn't uniquely evil. Trump is not even uniquely a puppet. Trump is Ronald Reagan 2.0. Trump is an actor, a salesman. Whereas Reagan was an actor, Trump is a salesman. And he is an exceptional salesman. And the Democrats didn't want to recognize that. So they built him into a cartoon character that insulted the intelligence of most average Americans. Because you know what? Most average Americans support a lot of the things that come out of Donald Trump's mouth. He might never do them, but they do come out of his mouth. And that makes the average American feel validated and heard in a way that the smug elitism of the Democratic Party hasn't touched them in a long time, other than perhaps Joe Biden, which we'll get to that as well. This entire election was nothing but a puppet show farce after October 7th. After October 7th, a collection of mega donors coalesced around, let's just call it what it is, Jewish supremacy. Now, that is a very charged word for obvious reasons. When I say Jewish supremacy, do I mean normal Jewish people who go to temple or who engage in Jewish culture or have Jewish family? No, none of that. When I say Jewish supremacy, I mean Jewish people who believe they are uniquely better or superior to other people just because they're Jewish. In the same way, a white supremacist or, any kind of racial supremacist would. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a very specific and small group of people at the center of a specific religious movement, and then some additional, a cast of additional supporting characters. So the group is called Chabad Lubavitch. Now, you don't have to take my word that this is a Jewish supremacist group that's on par with the Nazis, who, by the way, they collaborated with during World War II. Just a fun little tidbit right there. Yeah, the Nazis helped smuggle the Chabad rabbi out of Eastern Europe. So we're not only dealing with Jewish supremacists, but we're dealing with Jewish supremacist Nazi collaborators. Yeah, I know. It sounds it sounds like David Irving's lizard people. So it's a little, you can just follow with me here, folks. So Chabad Lubavitch, and what occurred in the wake of October 7th kind of caused a second Jewish supremacist awakening that Chabad not only poured gasoline onto, but exploited for their own ends in the same way they exploited the Holocaust. So Chabad essentially used October 7th to radicalize a large collection of very wealthy, ethnically conscious Jewish people, like Bill Ackman, for instance, who had his Chabad bar mitzvah last year and then mysteriously converted to Trumpism. So there are many Bill Ackmans. There are many Democratic donors, mega donors, mind you, who coalesced to force Joe Biden out in a very coordinated way that we'll get into. Joe Biden was effectively blackmailed into resigning from running for the presidency again. He was tactically defenestrated in a way that got rid of him with only 3 months to go, basically, and a candidate who had about as much chance of winning as Osama bin Laden. Now, it was close. It was close because Trump is repulsive to many people. That's it. But you picked an Indian anchor baby who grew up in Canada that was a smug Dami mommy, and you had that run against fucking Rodney Dangerfield from Caddyshack. Who did you think was going to win? It was a goddamn fucking movie. It was a movie that Americans have seen 20, 30, 40, 50 times in their entire life, depending upon how many times they've been to the cinema. Trump is a character. He is an American character. And if you can't understand that, you cannot understand Trump or his supporters. That's the other thing. The Democrats essentially, their donors, a certain collection of donors wanted this thing wrapped up and handed to Trump. But the rank and file of the Democratic Party, you fools made it easy. You clowns literally just wrapped it in a box and gave it to Mr. Trump. You said, oh, here, just have the presidency. Have it. You just do whatever you want. Why? Because you got a bunch of frosted twits that haven't ever left an urban area in their adult lives. They think they can dictate to other people about reality. I mean, there's genuinely no reason why Donald Trump should have won again. He lost to Joe Biden. All right? So, to have what happened happen is more than a forced error. If you peel behind the curtain in Oz, you'll see that Old Joe was tactically destroyed. Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are both buddy chums of Benjamin Netanyahu. If you watch that debate under the context that it's essentially the shivving of an old man and putting him out to pasture so that Bibi's other buddy, Donald Trump, can come back to the presidency, you're a fool. People who think Donald Trump is an outsider are a fool. Donald Trump's been affiliated with Shabbat Lubavitch since his father's days. His father is the one who made the connection with that organization when he started taking their, how do you put this, the money from their criminal enterprises and injecting it into his own real estate empire as a front. Trump later, the son, would continue this tradition, and he would then further plug himself into their network. Not just in the real estate world, but in the media and political world. Donald Trump was already out there in the 90s torpedoing Pat Buchanan's Populist Party. He was already flying in there in the 2000s talking about running for president. And, you know, he's not an outsider. He was given a network TV show and has been lauded by the media for 5 decades now. It's comical. You look at who his top donors are, they're all connected, for the most part, through Shabbat. You look at his cabinet appointments, even down to Robert F. Kennedy, who, by the way, folks, is another just absolute mess of a man who's a puppet. The only reason Robert F. Kennedy ran in this election initially was to help make Joe Biden a less viable candidate. As soon as Joe Biden left, so did Bobby. And look where he is now. Him and Shmuley Boteach are going to be chilling it up in the Trump administration. You look at the Republican primary, you look at scum like Vivek Ramaswamy from Shabtai over at Yale. You look at Peter Thiel's bum boys and his long-standing relationship with Israeli intelligence. And not just Israeli intelligence, but Peter Thiel helps them spy on our own fucking elected officials through Palantir. Peter Thiel's a traitor. Elon Musk is a traitor. But, I mean, both of them get government contracts and subsidies, just like most billionaire traitors that we have floating around our country. These people who exploit our systems of government for their own personal ends. So, why did Donald Trump become president again? Why did he win? Collection of things, yeah. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that October 7th set off a lot of people in a bad direction that made them a lot easier to exploit for this group called Shabbat Lubavitch, who coalesced more or less a support network behind Trump, just like they did before. And you're going to see the fruits pay out in the administration. You're going to see a war with Iran. You're going to see well, just look at the list of people he pardoned the first time around. So there's no, I mean, he literally, before the election, went to Mendel Schneerson's grave, the Rebbe's grave, the prophet of Shabbat Lubavitch, and prayed. He went and did devotion at this sick piece of shit's graveside. And I don't say that lightly. You just need to read the stuff that came out of, his hand in his mouth. His words damn him. Schneerson is a demon. Anyone pretending that a character like that has any place in the fabric of America or being associated with our president is a sick. Is somebody who doesn't want to recognize the elephant shit in the punch bowl of American democracy. The current Republican Party are a collection of bought and paid for cuckolds owned by Jewish supremacists. From Lady G. Lindsey Graham to Dennis Hastert 2.0 MAGA Mike Johnson. Oh, yeah, that's another thing that should have tipped you off the fix was in when they put that little pederast in charge of the House. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the days leading up to the Iraq War, but there was a gentleman that was put in charge of the House as majority leader, as Speaker of the House, named Dennis Hastert. He liked to diddle little boys. That's how you get an Iraq war. Well, we're about to get an Iran war, and Dennis Hastert's understudy is going to give it to you after he's done giving it to little boys. So that's the America that we've got now. And it's not the fault of Trump voters. No. Anyone who wants to blame them is a piece of shit. They voted for the best option they had. The Democrats didn't give them a fucking alternative. They gave them Kamala Harris, the Californication candidate, who would have done all the same dumb shit Trump does, but even more absurd, anti-human, anti-American, just corporatist oligarchic nonsense. Because unlike Trump, who actually has a spine and a personality, she's a fucking airhead. I mean, Kamala Harris is an empty plastic bag that wind blows into. People are tired of the white guilt bullshit. They're tired of being shamed for being male. They're tired of being shamed if they're a woman, if they don't want to have a corporate career. People are just sick of it. You know, the Democrats didn't respect Trump, and instead of holding him accountable for things like causing inflation when he printed $6 trillion during the pandemic and let Larry Fink give it out through his freaking retarded lending facility. No, they couldn't hold Trump accountable for his crimes against the American public because they were complicit in them. Because the Democrats' donors wanted the exact same shit that Trump did. It beggars belief how stupid we have allowed ourselves to become to tolerate this shit. Where two parties don't even seriously fight each other. Oh, we've got a cat visitor. Yes. So sorry for the interruption, folks. The cat is an added feature of this. I'm gonna have to get him herded off here. Come on, you little rascal. Okay, come on, bud. All right, forget it. We'll be doing the show with the cat, I guess. So yeah. So with Donald Trump, we're gonna get a big old heaping of kosher nationalist surveillance capitalism. You know, the same thing that Shabbat and the Likudnik Jewish supremacist donor network has been buying in Western democracy after Western democracy, from Argentina to the Netherlands, from England to France. They have been attempting to subvert and divert nationalism into a Jewish supremacist Zionism. Because that's the thing. That's the other thing. I don't take any umbrage with Zionism, with Jewish people having a homeland. I wear this scarf out of, love for friends I have over there right now on both sides. Because what's going on over there right now is a travesty to all humanity. It's an insult to creation and the dignity of life. It's a damnation for the future of Israel. And it needs to be put to a stop. But it won't. It'll only get worse now because for 4 years, Netanyahu is going to have his little dog in the White House. And I don't say that lightly. You need to realize that Donald Trump has been funding the Likud party since the 1980s. Rupert Murdoch, who helped create the myth of Donald Trump, has been funding Benjamin Netanyahu and Likud since the fucking 80s. Since the beginning. Go look up something called Netanyahu's Millionaires List. That was in the Israeli media a little bit ago. No one has ever touched on that in the American media. Not once. It is an entire network that lists a large collection of Jewish supremacist and affiliated billionaires in America who are donating to Israeli elections to subvert Israel. And then in turn, help subvert America through organizations like IPAC and the WJC. Mr. Ronald Lauder. Yeah. So it's really important that we strip Jewish supremacy and Jewish supremacists from the Jewish people as a whole so they lose the protection that they do not deserve. So they lose the armor of the Holocaust and the tragic victimhood of their own people, because it's meaningless to them. It's just hypocrisy. It's just an excuse to inflict the same crimes on others. That's unacceptable to me. That should be unacceptable to every human being with a soul and any dignity left. The media has never held Donald Trump actually accountable. All they've done is called him Hitler and called him, he's going to be Napoleon and he's going to do a coup and he's a fascist. They have said everything about Trump that he is not. Trump is just your average fucking oligarch and he's a great salesman. Trump governs the same way he does real estate deals. He operates at a high level and sells the deal. Once he closes the deal, he delegates all the other bullshit to other people. And that's his donors. That's the sociopaths from Silicon Valley who think they should be able to look up your asshole and put a chip in your brain. That's Jewish supremacists like Miriam Adelson and Bill Ackman. And the Brotherhood of Shabbat Lubavitch. Sure, there are some, decent people. That's the problem. The supporting Trump doesn't make you a bad person. Look, the people who funded Donald Trump have tried to murder me twice. And even I had to pull a lever for Cornel West. There's no way I was voting for Kamala Harris. So you need to understand, especially if you're on the left, that trying to shame and blame the Republican voter, the person who pulled the lever in that booth, is stupid, it's futile, and it is exactly what the enemies of our country want us to do. It is exactly what the ruling class who have subverted our democracy want you to do. It's the system's fault Trump is back in, because that's who the system wanted. That is, we have had an engineered political system in this country for over 100 years at this point. Ever since you had a collection of bankers essentially get together to create a central bank and then start steering the economy, we've had some degree of political manipulation in this country. Out of a desire to not have this video be 3 hours long, we're going to break that up and we're going to get into that at a later date, topic by topic. It's simple. The people who run America hate you. They only run America. You got to think of the American system kind of like a game that's going awry. You have essentially our society, imagine it as a giant Monopoly game. But the problem is the bankers are dealing themselves money under the table. Now, for you Zooms and late millennials who don't know what a board game is, just imagine you have a computer game or a mobile game or whatever the hell your fancy is, and you put a cheat code in that lets you give yourself as much money as you want. Well, that's not a game anymore. That's a rigged system where the people who have access to the creation of money essentially get to dictate everything else because they always win. So we've now reached a point where we don't have elections, we have theater shows between two elements of the same faction at the end of the day that only represent a surface level difference. A surface level difference. It's comical. I mean, the Democrats used to be the party of the working class, and then somebody decided it was a good idea to make them hate guns and babies and love criminals and illegal aliens. Because that's what every working class person in America surely wants and surely believes. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats, if they wanted to clean the fuck up and win half the elections without even trying, all they have to do is go back to loving babies, loving guns, hating violent and antisocial criminals, and, not letting illegals invade the country. Not too fucking hard. Genuinely, most people like things like healthcare and social services and, functional country, yada, yada, yada. You know what they don't like? They don't like it when you have the time to make sure that burglars and rapists and all other manner of scum is let out on ROR by corrupt DAs while we're still charging people for possession of marijuana. The Democrats, they'll release violent criminals, but they won't make pot legal. That's the brain trust that runs the Democratic Party that prevents them from ever being anything more than cuckolds to corporates, to corporate donors. The Democratic Party represents your corporate oligarchy, and the Republican Party represents your more traditional old money oligarchy. That's it, folks. That is the only difference between the two parties. That's why the difference in everything from border policy to economic policy is minuscule. And we spend all of our time fighting over trannies and gun control, which should never, it's comical. It's absolutely absurd. But no, yeah. The Indian anchor baby who grew up in Canada, that was who was going to defeat Donald Trump with $1 billion. That is a study in window licking retardactyldation. Just a level of troglodytean idiocy that shouldn't be achievable for a bipedal hominid. But then you just got to look at, certain people skulking around the Democratic Party and realize that this is all to a degree engineered. You got to look at the people like the Pritzker family or the Blinken family or old Dustin Moskovitz. And you got to look at how they steered the Democratic Party in the wake of October 7th, and how they coalesced around getting rid of Joe Biden as the candidate all at once, like it was coordinated. Because it was. Now we can talk about the Trump assassination, which we will talk about that at some point, because there is a rabbit hole there if you want to go down that as well. Not necessarily. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll talk about a lot of different things in regard to that specific issue. But, you just witnessed a complete farce of an election. You witnessed a puppet show. You witnessed something that is an embarrassment to every single person who has ever bled for a vote to bring about democracy. You witnessed something that was staged for the benefit of the fools who are still caught in the cancer of the duopoly that exists at the heart of American government, the Uniparty. The Hydra, essentially, where you have the Democrats, you have the Republicans, and then you have the career civil servants who expect a cushy revolving door kind of network of employment to exist around them. And they're all on a nice little leash to a bunch of oligarchs. And why? Because we, over the last 40 years, have deregulated and have essentially destroyed democracy. I mean, everything from Citizens United to the fact that your rank and file people who make the laws that govern our elections are too fucking stupid to understand the massive impact that dark money from social media has on them. I mean, that's how I helped exploit the election in 2016 in favor of Trump. I mean, the degree to which the entire movement around Donald Trump is inorganic is another thing we're going to go into. I helped create it. I mean, I called them Pavlov's influencers. We could make them say or do whatever we wanted, just based upon money and attention. Most of the people who you get your opinions from are shallow, selfish sociopaths who would sell you poison and tell you it was a cure as soon as they piss on you if you were on fire. That's the, I mean, look at, some jerk off like Tim Pool, some frosted twit like Kyle Kuklinski. And look at these jerk offs. They don't give a shit about you. They don't, they're smug little self-important dweebs. That's the other problem with politics, folks. It attracts losers. It attracts the kind of fucking people who thought Model UN was a fun thing to do. The majority of people who are capable don't go into politics. It's the people who can't succeed at bullshitting people in like careers like acting, or you can't become famous the traditional way. You can't become rich the traditional way. You can't become powerful the traditional way. So you go into politics. That's the other problem. The pool that we're drawing candidates for leadership from is, it's terrible. So you're not getting the truth from anywhere. And you live in a cycle of lies that allows you to self-insulate and keep telling yourself that things will get better because it's all the other guy's fault and your guy's the guy and it's going to be the way it's going to be. Well, guess what? People who just voted for Donald Trump, you're going to see how badly he's just going to just spread both your cheeks open and thrust away for his donors over these next 4 years. Because I know exactly what his donors bought because we've been spying on them for over a decade at this point. I know exactly what they purchased. They purchased a war with Iran. They purchased lower interest rates and a return to the funny money economy. They purchased unrestrained surveillance capitalism. That's what they purchased. A couple other things too. We'll get around to those eventually. But you don't know who sold it to them? The rank and file of the Democratic Party. Because you just allowed it all to happen. You have allowed, since 2007 and 2008 and the beginning of Obama and Occupy, the Democrats have allowed their party to be co-opted into an abomination. The Republicans have been an abomination since Ronald Reagan. Democrats had started with old Slick Willie and his NAFTA boys in the 90s. But there was some pushback, and it was nowhere near as fast down the hill to decline as the GOP was with old Ronnie. Ronnie and his... I mean, let's be honest, Ronald Reagan was a gay prostitute. More on that later. We'll get to that as well. So Ronald Reagan had already sold the GOP out in the 80s. But the Democrats over the last 20, 25 years, and especially once the Obama corporate oligarchy installed themselves at the head of the party, have literally just given up. You have no argument to average people as to why they should vote for you. The reason Joe Biden won is because of his "I'm a normal dude from Scranton" shtick. That was it. Try to be fucking human beings, and maybe there will be a viable alternative instead of just one single uniparty that promotes the interests of the oligarchy. You know, I'd like to... I lean more to the right. So would I like the GOP to reform itself? Oh, I would love it. That's not going to happen. The Republican Party is going to be the cult of the Trump family for the next 20 years. Unless something drastic changes. So America has essentially two options. We create a third party and leave behind both of these failing cancerous tumors, these anal pustules of political corruption. Or we hijack what's left of the Democratic Party from the corporate consultants and the Beltway boys and the scummy oligarchs that have nested themselves in there since the 90s, since neoliberalism. Ultimately, that's what we need to do. I mean, like I said, a lot of this stuff that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is good. It's what the people want. The people want, more than anything else, an end to neoliberalism. Trump's not going to give it to them. So whoever does, that will be the group who is set up to maintain power for the next 50 years. That will be the next group of New Deal Democrats who, just like Roosevelt's Grand Party, will maintain a degree of institutional power for decades. Why? Because they came through for the people. The salesman that Trump is understands that. That's why he sold the people what they wanted. He's not going to give them what they want. He's not going to deliver on it. I mean, just look at everything from Trump Air to Trump Steaks to the casino he bankrupted. Trump is an amazing salesman. He is shit at execution and logistics. And look at the cast of clowns that he's put in charge over there. Everybody from, Susie Wiles. We'll have a nice show exposing her. What a vicious little retard she is. Yeah, we'll go into the whole new administration in depth. But what we're not going to do is disrespect the people who voted for Donald Trump. Because in our esteemed opinion, they made the right choice. Because what was the alternative? What was the alternative that was offered to them? Now, do I respect people who voted for the third party a little more? Of course I do. But the only people who wanted the bullshit garbage that Kamala and her Californicated corporate Democrats were selling are sociopathic, social striving urbanites who are detached from human reality. And until you understand that and you forgive anyone for voting for Trump, for supporting Trump, we can't begin to heal. We need to heal to come together to start a viable third party. And that's not going to be possible unless both the people coming from the right and the left can get over fighting for different puppets in a show and realize that love thy neighbor is one of the most important commandments. And, maybe loving guns and loving babies and not loving criminals and illegal might also be, that just a thought, just a little thought that might also be a winning political strategy too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much further the Democrats dig themselves into a hole that prevents America from ever fixing itself, while the Republicans further sell them out to a coalition of Jewish supremacists who essentially believe in some sort of messianic apocalypse that also jives with the collection of aging Christian evangelicals who want to send the world to hell so they can rapture out of it. So personally, the sooner we can get rid of both of these parties and what they represent, the better. I think that's why some people voted for Trump. So we need to get back to a society that actually gives a shit about the people's future who live in it. And I mean all of them and their dignity. I don't mean just the donors. I don't mean just the members of your own party. I don't mean who it's convenient to care about. I mean everyone. And that makes things a whole lot simpler. It's called having principles. Then you don't have to live in your own head in a bullshit world of lies and self-soothing nonsense. Then you don't have to lose 2 elections to a man who could only beat a woman in a theatrical puppet show. But that's not the world we live in. It's the world we should live in, though. It's the world we could live in if you do something about it. We do something about it. And that's what we're going to do here. That is what we're going to do over 4 years of the Trump presidency. We are going to entrench ourselves and establish the only effective resistance to the oligarchy in not just America, but in the world. We will be beginning a movement that stands for the rights and dignity of all people. And we're going to explain a lot more about what that means and what positions that we hold entail based upon the principles that we have. But that begins today, and that begins with understanding that this election is a complete fugazi, that our political system is a complete fugazi. It's all a Ponzi scheme. The more money you have, the more political influence you have. That's it. That's the only actual axiom of American politics. Nothing else matters, only money. And you would be gobsmacked how little money you have to spread around to get what you want. You know, it might sound like Elon Musk spread around a lot of money to influence an election till you realize the billions of dollars in subsidies that little parasite has accumulated over his lifetime. So it's... We suffer under the stupidity of our current society because most people don't want to grow the fuck up and realize that puppet shows are for kids, and that if we want a functional government that represents the people, is made up of the people, and stands for what the people want, well, we're just going to have to put our boot ups in people's ass, maybe. You know, we maybe just have to get up off our own ass and do something. So that's it for tonight, folks. We'll bring you back to another lecture probably after Thanksgiving. We'll get into the foundations of where the power cartel behind Trump comes from, going all the way back to the founding of the Federal Reserve, as many conspiracy theorists, I'm sure, will be eagerly awaiting. It's important to cover this history because if you don't understand where things come from, you're not going to be able to guess where they're going. And that's going to be extremely important in the coming days. Because if we don't get these next 4 years right, if these messianic lunatics are allowed to start a global war on behalf of their demonic narcissism and parasitic belief in their own supremacy, then all humanity will be damned. So I leave you with that heavy bit of responsibility, and I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk later.